Hello, everyone, and inside today's episode of Locked On Canadiens, the Canadiens have finally set their opening night roster with a couple of surprises and a whole lot of injuries. We're going to delve into that and how four rookies have made the opening night lineup, all that and more inside today's show.
Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 703 of Locked On Canadiens. As always, thank you for making us your first listen every day wherever you get your podcast. And if you're subscribed on YouTube, please make sure you ring that bell. You get notified anytime that we post a video right to your subscription box. It means a lot to us. We are reunited, and it feels so good. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matla, and I am joined once again by the person keeping this podcast afloat and not on fire in any way, shape, or form, the active stick, Laura Saba, who was covering for me yesterday because I was recovering from a Buffalo Bills tailgate, and I think that's why we work so well. Laura is there to do all the mature things that I do not because I cannot be trusted on my own. Laura, it's almost opening night. They have set the lineup for better or for worse, depending on which way you look at it. And how are we feeling with, people are listening this Tuesday, so that'll be, 36 hours before the Canadiens take on the Toronto Maple Leafs on opening night?
I'm excited to see Guhle on that roster. We thought that they were going to send him to the AHL, and it may well be that they do eventually send him to the AHL if he's not going to play top-line minutes in the NHL. I think the preference would be for him to be in a position where he's playing all those minutes, but right now the way that he's playing, it's entirely possible that they choose to keep him up. I was just so excited to see him on that roster. I was just so, he's the prospect that right now we had the most faith in. We'd put the most faith in before the draft, and he still is. He might not be in the depth chart, he might not be the number one because you've got the potential of somebody like Slafkovsky that's still, the ceiling is still an unknown, and it's an infinite ceiling at the moment, right? The ceiling is sky high. But he's the prospect that we had the most faith in, and he's the one who has played like a beast during the preseason. He knows what he needs to do. I can't say enough about how much I love Kaiden Guhle on this roster, and I'm excited to watch him play against the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think that there's going to be rookie mistakes. There always will be, right? But he's such a good player that I think that whatever happens to him this season, he's going to learn from it, and it's not going to be a setback for him. It's going to be a learning curve for him.
And we will touch on Kaiden Guhle and some of the other young guns who made the roster later on in the show a little bit, because there are some tie-ins to that. And I have the roster up in front of me right now, and we're going to go over how injuries have impacted this in our next segment too. But the forwards, Josh Anderson, no surprise. Cole Caulfield, no surprise. Kirby Dach, no surprise. Evgeny Dodonov, Jonathan Drouin, Christian Dvorak, Jake Evans, Brendan Gallagher, Mike Hoffman, Sean Monahan, Michael Pezzetta, stuck it out, made it likely the team's 13th forward, Rem Pitlick, Juraj Slafkovsky, and Nick Suzuki. On defense, Kaiden Guhle, Jordan Harris, the newly acquired Jonathan Kovacevic, Mike Matheson, David Savard, Chris Weidman, and then Jake Allen and Samuel Montembeault in net. I'm going to take a tweet here from Scott Wheeler in that he looks at the forward group and goes, it's not nearly as bad as people are making it out to be. If everything can kind of meld and have some cohesion here, the Canadiens forward group doesn't look all that bad, but defensively, admittedly, not the strongest group. And like I said, there are injuries impacting that, and that's poor Jake Allen and poor Samuel Montembeault behind that. And off of that, there were also 5 players assigned to the Laval Rocket today: Justin Barron, Raphael Harvey-Pinard, Otto Leskinen, Caden Primo, and Jesse Ullinen, not to mention Corey Schoeneman and Madison Bowie, who both cleared waivers to go to the Rocket too, joining Philip Machar and some others in the Rocket dressing room there. The Rocket are very good this year, and so I'm going to do my spiel very early on in this season. If the Canadiens are making you sad, go watch the Rocket as well, because they are going to be very loaded with talent. A lot of their key veterans came back from last year's playoff team, and they've added Philip Machar. They're going to have Harvey Pinard. They're going to have Ullin. They've added Anthony Richard and Mitchell Stevens. On defense, Matthias Norlinder's playing there. You're likely going to see Arber Xhekaj and Jordan Harris. Justin Barron will be playing for the Rocket this year. There's a lot of very good names there, and that trickles down because the Rocket assigned guys like Emile Poirier and Brett Stapley and others down to the ECHL there. The 3-tier system is working. So if the Canadiens aren't, giving you that joy in your life, there will be options. But I'm surprised by everything we've seen. The biggest name that sticks out of all the players that made the NHL roster is somehow Juraj Slafkovsky. And I don't mean that as a mean thing to hold against the kid. His preseason was uneven. And I don't think that's unfair to say. It shows they have confidence in him to figure it out. And I get that people are kind of freaking out, wondering, is he actually going to stick, or were they going to yo-yo him? I think, when people are healthy and whatnot, he might just go to the AHL. And you know what? That's fine. I don't see an issue with that whatsoever. I think there's some PTSD scars from the previous regime still that are kind of hurting Canadiens fans a little bit here.
Right. And I did get too excited and started talking about Kaiden Guhle, but I feel like, we're going to fill this episode with the same proportion of minutes that we want Kaiden Guhle to play. So I think that with Slafkovsky, it's like you said, it was uneven, and we will eventually get to that Kent Hughes interview. We did have a lot to say today, so we'll probably talk about that tomorrow. People were talking about how he called Slafkovsky out, but he also is talking about what he wants to do, like what the development plans are for him. And it's working on aspects of the game. And he keeps talking about how they got him as a player with upside. He's raw. He's not a fully formed player. He's a player that they want to be good in the future. So I'm not freaking out about that. I'm not concerned about that. I think it is interesting, but I also do think that we kind of predicted on this show that, it's opening night, it's at home, it's against the Toronto Maple Leafs. He'll probably make the opening night roster and then eventually get assigned to Laval within a few weeks, if not within a few games. And he's going to be expected to perform there and, the top line minutes and all of that. So I'm not surprised he made the opening night roster. In fact, that was something that I did see coming, but I also would not be surprised if he gets set down to Laval not too far in the future. I think he's somebody I'm excited to watch his development curve, but I don't think it's going to take a year. I think it's going to take 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, basically with him, he's the ultimate test of, do you actually have patience for a rebuild, or do you want instant gratification? And admittedly, I want both because I am that kind of person, but it's going to be a test for this new regime in charge. Can they stick to what they said? Even if, this looks enticing, can you stick to what you want to do here? And I think we're going to learn a lot about Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton this year. Yes, they had a lot of good things last year, but this now is going to be a big test. It's 82 games for everybody. And they're already starting right where they left off last year. Whole bunch of dudes are injured. We're going to get into injuries and how they're impacting the opening night roster and everything. That's all coming up next. But first, folks, if you have followed this podcast since we started, we love Built Bar and everything Built Bar does. And that includes the new Built Bar Puffs. And they've done it again with delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. The folks at Built are always on top of their game. The cookie dough chunk puffs have a light, chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Plus, they are healthy for you. They're great. Have them in the morning on your way to work like I do. Have them after a workout. Have them as a snack. They have everything that you're looking for. They're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides a ton of health benefits. And so you might as well eat something that tastes good and is good for you. So we're telling you now, you're going to love the new cookie dough chunk puffs. So whether you need that snack or whatnot, you're going to want to go to built.com, use promo code LOCKEDON15 and get 15% off your order. And always keep checking back. Built always has new things. And remember, that's built.com, promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off your order. All right, we are back. It is Locked On Canadiens. They have allowed us to reunite and increase our power 300 times fold. We are more powerful than your other hockey podcasts, mostly because I have had too much caffeine today, and Laura is well rested after a nice trip out of the country. So we're going to immediately bring the mood down here. We're going to talk about all the Montreal Canadiens players who were injured. We talked about who made the opening night roster, and you'll notice Mike Matheson's name is on that list. Martin St. Louis does not think Mike Matheson will be ready to play by opening night, which is a drastic change from he's fine. We're just resting him to be precautious, use precaution in these preseason games to he might not be ready for opening night. And also on there is Joel Edmundson, who is still out an indefinite amount of time. He began skating again today and has been progressing, but they do not have a timetable for his return. Also on IR is Yoel Armia, who is out 1 to 2 weeks, and prospect Emil Heineman will be out until at least December with a thumb injury. We are not allowed to have nice things as Canadiens fans, and this does not also include Nick Suzuki, Christian Dvorak, and Mike Hoffman, who are coming off slight day-to-day injuries at the end of the preseason. I got to be honest, it's like they never left. They came back and everybody's already injured again. We almost entered the season with Sean Monahan as the first line center in Montreal, which I don't know. I mean, it's very clear that I was
going to say it could work.
It could work if both his hips are functioning as well as we hope they are. And this doesn't include Carey Price, who was on LTIR or will be added to LTIR, and Paul Byron, who went from potentially being ready for this season to his hip is so bad he might not play again either. And that 2021 Cup run continues to come back and haunt the Montreal Canadiens at this point. And it's very strange looking at all the pieces these guys, all the roles these guys played, and they're the ones who are out right now, save for, Matheson and such. But I really hope it's not going to be another injury-filled year. I want young guys to get their shot, but I don't want it to be because everybody is injured all the time. It's no fun at that point, really. Like it kind of hurts to watch the team limp along like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what happens is those guys feel the pressure to come back before they're fully healed. And then you have longer term injuries. I really, really just hope that it was just a preseason thing, a lot of tweaking groins and things like that happen in the preseason, and they'll be back. I feel like with Joel Edmundson out, there's a bit of leadership support that Nick Suzuki is missing. So I do hope that there's somebody there to support him. Like, I feel like, he's starting out as captain. This is his first year as captain. He's got a lot to prove, and he's going to be one of the 2 players, or one of the 3 players, I should say, that most of the eyes are on, right? Slafkovsky and Caulfield being the other 2 people. So I feel like injuries are going to provide an opportunity for him to step up, but I also hope that it doesn't provide or it doesn't cause sort of a gap in other people that they can look up to in the dressing room, other people that can provide that leadership, because we saw what happened when the leaders left last year, right? For whatever reason, whether they were injured or they were signed by other teams, we saw what happened to the locker room. We don't want to see that again.
Yeah, and like I said, we don't want to see that happen to the locker room, but at the same time, I look at this team right now and I think to myself, if guys are getting injured though, there are guys who are actually NHL ready to step up into those spots. Your Ulanins, your Harvey Pinards, even a Mitchell Stevens and Anthony Richard can fill in a short pinch, not counting, someone like Philip Machar who might make some noise there. And there's so many options. I was talking with friend of this show, Sebastian High, about Sean Monahan might not be playing as a center for chunks of the season. He might be a winger on a line there. And that's okay. Like, they have flexibility down the middle or, in the forward group there a little bit. And then on defense, they have enough young guys that it feels like they can kind of supplement them. But I don't want to do this thing where we keep waiting for Joel Edmundson to come back again, because we don't know what the injury is. We know he ran into Nick Suzuki and that's where we're at. And it's a very weird thing. And a lot of people on Twitter pointed out that it's like they're asking a lot of younger guys now to, hey, Edmundson's out, Matheson is out. the most veteran guy in this defense is David Savard, and David Savard is not a number one defenseman. So they're going to be asking a lot of Jordan Harris, of Jonathan Kovacevic, of Arber Xhekaj, of Kaiden Guhle. And here's the thing. These guys have skills in their own right. It's a trial by fire. And Martin St. Louis had a very good quote today. He said, we told these guys they are going to make the team and their feet are going to be to their fire a little bit here because there are people that can and will replace them if need be. And we are going to talk about some of those younger guys in the next segment and our expectation. But before we finish up this segment, I guess, because we talked about injuries, we should end on a little bit of a fun note in this one. Laura, what is your bold prediction for the Canadiens roster based on who is on it right now? What is your bold prediction for them for this season?
For this season?
Yes.
As in like where they'll end up?
Just any random bold prediction. Could be anything. You could say Sean Monahan's going to be interesting, and I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's bold. So
I think that Kaiden Guhle will be the number one defenseman on this team before the end of the season. That's my bold prediction. It's bold.
My bold prediction is that no, Caulfield's going to lead the team. I think before long, Sean Monahan is going to have double-digit goals this season. I think that's going to result in him getting a nice big trade package out of Montreal to a team that wants to add depth. So that is my bold prediction. If you have bold predictions, share them in the comments. Tweet us on Twitter at @LO_Canadiens. Just don't be a jerk. We've had enough of that already. And when we come back in one moment, we're going to talk about the new 4 young rookies that made the team and the one who did not that we kind of expected to originally. And that's all coming up next. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and we're going to kind of wrap up the show here a little bit. I talked a little bit in the last segment about Martin St. Louis having a quote for the 4 young guys that they all called in at once and said they were making the team, and that's Arber Xhekaj, Jordan Harris, Kaiden Guhle, and Juraj Slafkovsky. And they were all told at the same time that they are making this team, but at any point in time, there are people who can and will take their spot if they are not performing up to the right standard. And they're both protecting these young guys and also telling them, go earn your spot. And, nothing is handed out here. Yeah, a bunch of you are first-round picks. Neat. Your spot is not guaranteed on any team in the NHL. And I know that sounds harsh, but I'm okay with it. And you will note Arber Xhekaj was not on the roster that was submitted at 5 p.m. He was papered down to the Rocket. I believe that was to save on cap. So when they do put Paul Byron and Carey Price on LTIR, they can maximize their cap space with that, at least from what I understand on Twitter. But I'm very interested to see that out of all these guys, Justin Barron was not part of this. He was sent down to the Rocket earlier today. And it's very funny how quickly fortunes can change. Like when you and I talked going into the rookie tournament, we expected Arber Xhekaj to be one of the, not early cuts, but, one of the guys who would go down to the Rocket more than likely. And Justin Barron was almost all but assured a roster spot. And it's entirely different. Like fortunes can change very quickly.
I think one of the things that I noted from that is they provided motivation, right? So they can perform. I don't think, it's Martin St. Louis. I don't think that they're going to be sent down or sat because they make a mistake. I do think they'll get sent down or sat if they don't play with intensity, if they don't show signs of wanting to improve, if they don't show, if they don't show the work ethic behind what they're doing. Like that to me is what I feel Martin St. Louis is behind, it is all about. So they make a mistake. It doesn't mean they're getting sent to Laval. It doesn't mean someone else is getting their spot. If they consistently refuse to improve upon their mistakes, that's when I think they lose their roster spot. So they have both given them the opportunity and provided them the motivation. It's not sink or swim. It's we are supporting you, but you have to do the most with this opportunity. And I really, really like that. And I think for Justin Barron, he was somebody that I will admit that I was kind of disappointed in. I do wonder if it's because of the way he's coming back from injury or if he just hasn't had enough time in the minors, right? To develop those instincts that we want him to have. I was disappointed in him, and not just in the rookie tournament, but also in the preseason. I thought that he didn't do enough, right? On the flip side, I thought that Arber Xhekaj did the most. I thought, for example, somebody like Kaiden Guhle or Owen Beck, you expect them to be on the team in the future, right? And the question is, when? With Owen Beck, obviously, they rewarded him with an entry-level contract, but he's going to be going back to the OHL to dominate. He's not. It's too soon for him to be in the NHL, right? But they've given him that inspiration. It's the same thing with Kaiden Guhle, right? Like this time last year, we were having the same conversation about Kaiden Guhle that we were about Owen Beck, whereas like the question mark, like, is he making it interesting? Is it going to happen? And this year, he did exactly what he needed to do, not to go to the AHL, but to go to the NHL to start the season. And I'm very, very pleased with his development. Arber Xhekaj is such an interesting case because I am excited to watch him on this team this season, not just against teams that I hate. I'm excited to see what he does. Like, he's such an interesting character, right? I find that his skill has been underrated thus far, but he brings that sort of, like, not that rough edge to the game. He's actually refined about how violent he is. It's very, very interesting. But I think that there's going to be so much fun watching him. Whereas with a lot of the other players, we're going to be groaning a lot as they learn to become full-fledged NHLers, or as, they make mistakes if it's the veterans, if they're not the right fit, or if they're not doing what it takes. And I think it's really interesting that I went away for a week and I came back and the Kirby Doc conversation is completely different than it was when I left, right?
Like we said, it's like fortunes can change very quickly. And for Justin Barron, I think him going to the Rocket is not this is a punishment for you. This is hey, we want you to work out through some of these kinks that are in your game and, get your confidence back. Arber Xhekaj is currently not lacking any confidence. Jordan Harris is not lacking confidence. Kaiden Guhle is not lacking confidence. And at certain points, they might just swap these guys around depending on what the season looks like for them. Are they playing well? Does someone need a little bit of a break and to go to the AHL, and not against lesser competition, but maybe get some more minutes to get their legs where they need them to be? And that also goes for someone like Corey Schueneman or a Otto Leskinen, who can be called up in a pinch, or the young guys in the forward group there. We talked about Slafkovsky in that first segment, that there's no guarantee that he's going to stay in the NHL all year and that he can slide up and down, and that's perfectly okay. I'm out of everything in the preseason, I am with you that Justin Barron, I went in with my hopes the highest for, but at the same time, I'm not disappointed in him because the Rocket were always an option, but it was a matter of, can he continue to build on what he showed before he got injured last year? And the hard part is they saw something they liked in Jonathan Kovacevic, who is signed for 3 more years, which is shocking to me. And they saw something they liked in that, maybe as a guy that they don't have to invest a ton in. Kovacevic is 25 years old. Justin Barron just turned 20. They can give Barron that time to cook and marinate a little bit and try out this other guy. If he works, cool, it's found money. If not, okay, you've let Justin Barron gain invaluable experience to grow. And I think that's a smart move. I'm actually surprised they didn't claim anyone on waivers on Monday when we were recording this. There were a lot of good names on there, but I now wonder if Kent Hughes has the wheels turning, because he pushed back his immediate availability to Wednesday morning now, which makes me think something's cooking here with guys passing through waivers. Okay, they're in the AHL now. That makes them less expensive for me to acquire. I'm curious to see what this roster is going to look like in 24 hours from the time that we have recorded this, and what changes are made. We will have obviously plenty more as we get closer to opening night puck drop. We will do a game preview. We will talk about everything else. Laura, do you have any parting thoughts on roster deadline day here?
It's Guhle time.
It is Guhle time. It's Slafkovsky time. It's Arber Xhekaj time. And if you're mad about it, stay mad. I do not care. He's a fun, interesting story. I wrote an article for him at Eyes on the Prize about how he went from just some kid passed over in the OHL draft to working at Costco to driving 2 Canadian fan bases absolutely up a wall without having done really anything to either of them. You can read that now. I just tweeted that out. And remember, you can follow us on Twitter at LO_Canadiens. You can follow Laura at The Active Stick. You can follow myself at Scott Matla. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And if you're subscribed here on YouTube, watching our faces, make sure you hit that bell so you get notified every single time that we post a brand new video or go live, like we do every now and then, where I'm inevitably eating something horrific. And when you are done checking us out, please check out Locked On NHL, where all of our local experts have all the information you need across the league to be ready for opening night. Everyone, we will see you all next time.